Still finding areas of flooding across the state, but not as much. Are we turning a corner, or do we hang on to this moisture?
That water will just flow wherever it can.
Water rushing down a Salt Lake City street ends up flooding an iconic Utah high school gym.
I teared up a little bit, not gonna lie.
The cleanup and concerns for the next round of heavy rain.
Hundreds of homes in Enoch flooded after a rainstorm pounded down here. Last night, it was all about getting the water out. We'll show you how today the community is coming together to get everything else cleaned up.
If we see a problem, we want to fix it.
A heavy hitter in Utah's economy is about to start getting political.
Federal protections for renters and homeowners are over, and today the impact of evictions and foreclosures are here in Utah. Just how bad it is for those who are struggling.
Live from Utah's news leader, Fox 13's Live at 5 starts right now.
First at 5, we saw widespread torrential rainfall all over Utah last night, and for some parts of the state, there are more storms ahead.
We do have team coverage on the impact of the flash flooding in just the past 24 hours from southern Utah up to the Wasatch Front. Let's start with Fox 13 meteorologist Breck Bolton with a look at what we can expect for this evening into tonight, Breck.
Well, we are still seeing some thunderstorms making their move. Looking at central and eastern Utah, the biggest focus. Now, we did, of course, get the rain earlier on here along the Wasatch Front. More light to moderate rainfall, but the focus for heavy rain, again, as we look in Wayne and Garfield counties. I want to show you these thunderstorms that have been making their move through Capitol Reef, tracking towards the southeast, moving to areas such as Lake Powell, now just north of Hall's Crossing, if you know that area, Good Hope Bay, and then tracking over towards areas as we look in Canyonlands National Park. Now, flash flood warning in effect, Capitol Reef. That should expire at about 6 o'clock, but will continue on as we move further towards the south and the east. Again, these thunderstorms, which could flow into Lake Powell, should be in effect until about 7:15. Now, a few showers just south of Green River, but again, not a big issue there. Earlier on, as we looked in Emery, Carbon County, Huntington up near Price and Helper, we did have some thunderstorms, which did produce some heavy rain. Those flash warnings that were in effect have expired. As we take a look at your hour-by-hour forecast moving ahead, we might see an isolated thunderstorm, but all in all, things are improving here across northern Utah. And these thunderstorms, again, making a move towards the east. Do they completely exit the state, or does some of that monsoon moisture hang around? We'll talk about that coming up in just a few minutes.
All right, Breck, thank you. In Emery County, a miner is dead after flash flooding at the Gentry Mountain Mine. It is in Huntington Canyon. The Emery County Sheriff's Office says crews witnessed a wall of water and debris coming down Bear Canyon as they were heading up to work. Of about a dozen people affected by the flooding, one man was swept into the water and carried downstream. The body of the missing man was recovered at 11:15 this morning, about 6 miles downstream. Fox 13's Brian Schnee will have more on this tragic story tonight on Fox 13 News at 9. Meantime, a famous high school gym was also damaged in the flash flooding when 2 inches of rain fell on the east side of Salt Lake City last evening.
Fox 13's Haley Higgins is live at East High School tonight. Haley, tell us, how bad is it inside the school?
Yeah, it's really bad in there. I was talking with maintenance workers who are doing their best to clean it up, and that's how they explained it. It was just really bad. I want to show you what happened. The water came down these steps here, pooled in this area, and look at that water line. It is above the door handles. Under the threat of even more rain, East High School staff fill sandbags around the gym.
That water will just flow wherever it can.
Heavy rainwater rushed down 800 South, pooling outside the gym doors Sunday night. It seeped inside, spreading across the wooden floor.
And there is some cupping of the boards and everything else.
Several inches of water covered the iconic gym where the High School Musical movies and series were filmed. Because of the damage, dozens of High School Musical fans turned away.
We're really sorry. Appreciate it. Appreciate your patience.
From touring the school Monday.
I teared up a little bit, not gonna lie.
Maddie Wilhelm and her family drove 6 hours just to visit the school. The disappointed teen from Chicago settles for dancing outside.
I was upset that, like, today of all days, is gonna flood.
After similar flooding 4 years ago, the $2 million basketball court was replaced. It's still too soon to know if that will need to happen again.
Hopefully they can sand it down and make it smooth and we can work with it, but I don't know yet.
Now, the district spokesperson tells me that the district would like to talk with the city about their drainage concerns on 800 South, so something like this does not happen again. Reporting live in Salt Lake City, Haley Higgins, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Haley, thank you. The school district says high school musical tours are becoming increasingly popular, with nearly 1,000 visitors just this summer.
I mean, you're kind of just in shock that it's actually happening.
A cleanup now underway after about 200 homes flooded in Enoch. That's near Cedar City. The city right now is under a state of emergency, joining Cedar City and Iron County after intense storms caused widespread damage.
Fox 13 Sydney Glenn shows us the aftermath of that storm as people are working together to get things cleaned up.
Piles of debris sit in hundreds of homes in this small town. But while the cleanup is very intense, people say it's not as bad when you can see you have this many people helping.
On the side where, I don't know.
Cleaning up
That we want to try and save.
what used to be part of people's homes.
The rock band drum set's probably seen better days.
As Keith Rigdrup heads into his basement,
I'll go down there and try and see what they got going.
he thinks of what happened to cause this mess.
I just was grabbing my boys and saying it's going to come in our house.
Rigdrup watched in horror as the rainwaters came inside.
It's just tough. I mean, it's a lot of memories, but bottom line is everybody's okay.
Now people are in here, sweeping away the mud and sucking up the water.
People I've never met have just showed up and are in there taking care of things.
Help
You here to help then?
Yeah.
has been the theme of this storm.
I started getting texts at like 6 in the morning, which was kind of annoying because I was up till 3. But yeah, people started just texting and calling and they wanted to come help.
James Peterson is helping coordinate volunteers in the neighborhood today.
Are you okay just carrying stuff up from the basement?
Yeah.
Probably the corner house.
So many people just wanting to help
Just a great community to live in and people take care of each other.
while they clean up together. This area is not in a floodplain, so most people don't have flood insurance. The mayor says the city is trying to do everything they can to help people and urge everyone who has damage to please report it. In Enoch, Sydney Glenn, Fox 13 News, Utah.
They're cleaning up in Tooele County, too, where the rain let up just a little bit today. Residents are helping themselves to sandbags at the city maintenance shed. The floodwaters were hard to comprehend for some because it's been so dry for so long.
We had a report that it was 2.7 inches of rain in less than 2 hours that hit the main portion of Tooele City and Tooele County. The biggest bulk of our damages was done to our canyons, and we have roads crews up each end of our canyons clearing debris. Both Middle Settlement and Soldier Canyon received a big bulk of damage.
The bone-dry canyons turned into raging rivers of water, mud, rocks, and trees. And Main Street in Tooele was turned into a river with overwhelmed storm drains. And with more storms possible, Brittany Lopez says if you cannot bag your own sand, just call the city and they will arrange to send sandbags to you.
And that's not all. After yesterday's rain and mudslides, Big Cottonwood Canyon is back open this evening, but the cleanup is not yet done. Yesterday's fast-moving storm created scenes just like this. Take a look here. It forced UDOT to close Big Cottonwood Canyon and parts of Little Cottonwood Canyon. And while traffic is flowing once again, UDOT says to expect delays tomorrow morning.
When you get those, I like to call them gully washers. Exactly what it did. Washed all the rock out of the gully and brought it right down here on the road. We're going to have some trucks come in tomorrow. Expect one-way traffic. And we're going to start digging out what you see behind us.
Well, UDOT says no one was injured in the landslides, but some drivers did have to be rescued and helped down the canyon. They say when you head up any canyon, even just for a drive, you need to be prepared for the worst, including having a full tank of gas. So while Utah is cleaning up and homeowners and renters are now assessing the damage from yesterday's powerful storms, tonight on Fox 13 News at 9, we'll show you what flood damage is not covered by your homeowners or renters insurance, and what then is covered, and what to do if you think your city is liable. That's coming up tonight on Fox 13 News at 9.
Good news for Utah Jazz fans. ESPN is reporting NBA All-Star guard Mike Conley will re-sign with the Jazz. Conley's agents Steve Human and Jess Holtz say he has agreed to a $72 million contract. Conley also confirmed the news on social media. Jeff Rainier will have more on the deal coming up later in Fox 13 Sports.
With the start of school just around the corner for many students, the Education Department released a new roadmap today for returning to in-person learning. I'm Mallory Rivera with more on that and the growing debate on school safety coming up.
The Utah Department of Health has just released its back-to-school plans for schools as COVID-19 continues to surge in Utah. Fox 13 News first reported last month on what the plan was expected to say, and today's recommendations mirror that.
So here is what they are saying. They do strongly encourage anyone over the age of 12 to get the COVID-19 vaccine. Masks are recommended indoors, and people who test positive must isolate. Local health departments will set quarantine protocols after an exposure at school. They will utilize testing to determine if there's an outbreak, increase ventilation in the school, as well as hygiene and disinfecting. We do have a link to more information on those school plans at fox13now.com. You know, this announcement does come here in Utah on the heels of the U.S. Department of Education releasing a new roadmap for returning to in-person learning.
Fox's Madeline Rivera is in Washington with the latest on the guidelines and why some are pushing back.
The debate over what the new school year should look like is gaining steam. A new set of guidelines from the Department of Education likely to fuel a growing divide among parents and educators nationwide. The possibility of mask mandates in some school districts taking center stage.
If you re-implement mask mandates, we will not be sending our students to school.
In its return to school roadmap, the Department of Education is backing the CDC's recommendation for mask wearing, the agency advising that all teachers and students wear masks indoors, regardless of vaccination status.
Hopefully, as we have vaccinations for kids and less disease in the community, we'll be able to scale back on the mask wearing.
Several states like Texas, Iowa, and South Carolina, though, have laws banning schools from requiring masks.
This ought to be up to the parents whether the children wear a mask when they go to school. That's a parent decision.
And there's the issue of vaccines. The Education Department is urging parents to get students 12 and older vaccinated before school begins. Some, though, questioning the legalities of potential vaccine mandates in education.
I do believe it's outside of what the school's authority is to do.
Others argue that schools and parents must do what they can to make sure children are safe.
Listen to the facts. Protect our children. How on earth is it even a difficult decision?
The Department of Education is also encouraging schools to use COVID-19 relief funds to improve ventilation, buy more PPE, and hire more employees like nurses to help keep schools healthy and safe. In Washington, Mallory Rivera, Fox 13 News, Utah.
And we have the numbers on how many Utahns were behind on FHA-backed mortgages before the pandemic and how many are now. Coming up, it's a window into how many of our neighbors are worried about keeping their homes.
There is an economic storm sweeping the country that you can't see or feel unless you're in it.
As of today, courts are able to process evictions for renters, and protections for homeowners with federally backed mortgages also ended.
Going in depth today, Fox 13's Max Roth joins us with a look at the information available for how big the storm is in Utah. Max?
Yeah, Bob and Kelly, thank you. You know, and using that storm analogy, evictions and foreclosures are kind of like those dry lightning storms we have, more like lightning than rain. If you are struck, you're in trouble. Otherwise, you might not realize someone was hurt.
Officially, evictions go through courts, and the numbers we have in Utah are telling. We took all eviction filings in Utah in the last week of June and the last week in July, in non-moratorium 2019 and this summer. These bars show just how many cases were filed, and you can see that this June and July, cases haven't been filed at a pre-pandemic pace yet. That is sure to change. But we also can see how many judgments have been rendered in those same weeks, meaning a court has made a decision. In 2019, courts passed judgment on about half the number of cases filed. In June this year, courts came to 7 decisions in the last week of June and 1 in July, because courts were only evicting people for serious breaches, not for lack of payment. Now to foreclosures, with a lot more numbers available. In June of 2019, the FHA reported between 900 and 1,000 Utahns at least 90 days behind in payments on FHA-backed loans. In June this year, that number was well over 6,000. Just about every corner of the state has FHA borrowers in trouble, though following national trends, Utah's 2 most diverse large counties, Salt Lake and Weber, also have the most struggling borrowers. The FHA does not list numbers in counties with fewer than 100 borrowers.
So those numbers are specifically for FHA-backed loans. Those are the most often first-time homeowners, a large proportion of people struggling to pay, but it is hardly the whole picture. Now, things to keep in mind. You can talk to your mortgage company about forbearance. Some people with forbearance, they have through September or longer before they're really at threat here. If you have not explored that yet, now you can still do that. For renters, assistance is still available for those who qualify, and we'll connect you to that from this story on Fox13Now.com. In studio, Max Roth, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Max, thanks so much. Right now, we still have some flash flood warnings in place for parts of the state. Meteorologist Breck Bolton has been keeping track of an awful lot over the past 24 hours.
Well, it's been another active afternoon. Today's warnings a little bit more isolated, of course. Yesterday, more widespread, where we had advisories, warnings across northern, central, and southern Utah. Beginning to see this monsoon moisture moving on. So across northern Utah, this has been the scene. Now, yes, earlier on, we had light to moderate rainfall throughout northern Utah, holding on to the clouds. But in the afternoon, breaking free from those clouds, at least starting to, as the upper level moisture moving off towards the east. Now, with the clouds and those rain showers throughout the morning, boy, it kept temperatures well below normal. Right now, we're in the 70s, both in Salt Lake City and Provo. Current temperature in Ogden in the 80s. These are September temperatures here rather than the first part of August. Now, as we show you, we knew going into today and moving for the rest of the evening, yes, as we look from the Storm Prediction Center, light green indications where we could potentially see some isolated thunderstorms. Northern, central, eastern Utah, so there's still a chance moving through the evening, but the focus has been mainly across central and eastern Utah. Now, as we show you for tomorrow, what the outlook looks like right now, or at least for tomorrow, I should say, where for eastern Utah, we're still holding on to a threat of seeing those scattered thunderstorms, and it's mainly Uinta Basin as we look towards Grand Junction and continue to see that moving off to the east. So northern Utah, Wasatch Front, central, and most of southern Utah, improvements expected, where with that drier air, we're going to see more sunshine and temperatures cranking up. But for the rest of the afternoon into the evening, we still have a flash flood watch in effect, mainly for the higher terrain. You're seeing that little red there. That's the warnings that are in place as we look from Capitol Reef over towards Lake Powell. In those areas, we have seen anywhere between 1 to 2 inches of rain flowing down through areas such as Bullfrog into Halls Crossing. And we're seeing another line of thunderstorms pushing their way through Canyonlands. So this line, as we go from areas such as Green River over towards Canyonlands and then Lake Powell, that's where we're seeing this intense thunderstorm producing heavy rain. So again, looking at those flash flood warnings in effect, we'll see if there's any additional ones issued. Might potentially be just north of Moab as we look at Canyonlands moving through the rest of the evening. But again, along the Wasatch Front, and as we look through central Utah, a few isolated thunderstorms potentially impacting areas such as Schofield, down through Mount Pleasant, maybe Manti Ephraim. You might see some brief showers, but these are not big rain producers. You'll get hit with a little heavy rain, and then it moves on. Not a lot of flood concerns except for eastern Utah as we move through the evening. Now, by tomorrow, as we look at our computer models, we're still hanging on to that moisture for northeastern Utah, southwest Wyoming. That'll be the area of focus for your Tuesday afternoon. But as you can see, for the rest of the state, we're drying out. And boy, a nice little break from the rain. Even though we need the moisture, we just got too much here over the past week. Now for tonight, we're looking at overnight lows in the 50s and 60s. That threat of an isolated thunderstorm mainly across eastern Utah tomorrow. You can see for most of the state, we've got mostly sunny skies as temperatures look to warm up back to 90 degrees in Salt Lake City and triple digits in St. George, where we go from 104 to 107. A little bit of a different flow on Friday, dropping temperatures. Will be close to 100 degrees for the weekend, but as you can see, no raindrops over the next 7 days. Northern Utah, also drying trend, sunny skies, warming up close to 100 degrees on Thursday. Then we cool off just a little bit. We'll keep temperatures in the 90s, and it looks like that moisture is moving away.
Tech in Utah has done extremely well, but I think we would be doing the community a disservice if we didn't also try to bring the rest of the community along with our growth.
A major part of Utah's economy is going to start weighing in here on Capitol Hill.
Cases will go up further before they start to come back down.
Plus, with the spike in COVID-19 cases in the past week, will we see any public health orders come back?
We take a look at how some states, including Utah, are limited in what they can do compared to last year.
In today's Money Watch, Whole Foods Market is voluntarily recalling 2 brands of cheese because of concerns about listeria.
And check your refrigerator. The types of cheeses are called Cahill Cheddar Porter and Whiskey Cheddar. They were sold in 44 Whole Foods stores in 22 states, including Wyoming. The affected products have a Whole Foods market scale label with packed on dates from May 17th to July 26th. So far, no illnesses have been reported, but Whole Foods says if you have this in your fridge, throw it away.
Foot Locker is spending more than $1 billion in cash to buy LA-based sporting goods chain WSS and Atmos, which is based in Japan. The Wall Street Journal reports the deal will give Foot Locker 93 WSS stores in western and southwestern states and Atmos stores in Japan and the U.S. Foot Locker wants to expand beyond its namesake stores away from malls and wants to boost its online shopping. Foot Locker has also bought the GOAT Group, which is an online sneaker marketplace.
Athletic sneakers are big business.
They are.
The new Disney adventure flick, Jungle Cruise, starring Dwayne Johnson and Emily Blunt, steamed its way to win the weekend box office. It generated more than $34 million in ticket sales this weekend, as well as another $30 million on the Disney Plus streaming service. The movie is based on the Jungle Cruise ride at Disneyland. Disney hopes it will become another theme park ride franchise like Pirates of the Caribbean, which was a cash cow for them, making Disney $4.5 billion over 5 films.
U.S. stocks rose today to start August as investors cheered strong earnings growth, but then finished lower. The Dow lost 97 to close at 34,838. The Nasdaq added 8. The S&P dropped 8.
Still ahead in our next half hour, we take a closer look at how the U.S. is doing when it comes to getting people vaccinated during this latest surge of COVID-19 and why some health leaders may be limited when it comes to what health orders they can actually put in place.
Plus, we'll explain why Utah's tech industry is forming a political action committee. It's a story you'll only see on Fox 13 News.
Over the weekend, Utah saw another 2,200 cases of COVID-19, with more than 950 of those coming on Friday alone. There are 367 people hospitalized with the virus in Utah right now. Utah is also reporting the death of 10 more men and 5 more women, all due to the virus, meaning Utah has now lost 2,466 lives to COVID-19.
On the other hand, COVID-19 vaccinations are starting to increase. There were more than 18,000 doses of the vaccines administered in Utah over the weekend. That means nearly 1.5 million Utahns are fully vaccinated. That is more than 57% of eligible people.
On a national scale, the U.S. finally reached President Joe Biden's goal of getting at least one COVID-19 shot into the arms of 70% of American adults. The White House says the past week has been the strongest week of first-time vaccine doses being administered since early June. The president is set to give another update on vaccinations tomorrow.
What's unclear is whether any new mandates or public health orders will be enacted or suggested this week.
But as Joe St. George reports, in some parts of the country, including Utah, public health leaders have fewer powers now than they did this time last year.
Masks are back and mandates are increasing as the Delta variant continues to surge across the country.
Cases will go up further before they start to come back down.
While the federal government and the CDC certainly have the ability to enact public health orders, many of the restrictions in your community that were in place last year, for instance, came at the hands of local health departments or governors.
But across the country, many of those leaders actually have fewer powers today than they did this time last year.
According to the Network for Public Health Law, at least 15 states have passed or have considered measures to drastically undermine the authority of public health agencies to save lives. For instance, in Florida, the legislature or governor can now override any local health mandate if they think it violates civil liberties. A similar law is now in place in Ohio, where the state legislature is now allowed to override public health orders by the governor or health department. In Indiana, local governments cannot impose restrictions more stringent than those issued by the governor. In Utah, the legislature can now override emergency health orders too. In Montana, local health agencies cannot limit attendance at religious worship services. Jill Krieger is a director with the Network for Public Health Law and has been studying this nationwide.
We're all for democratic process and getting more voices into the mix. The problem is how quickly the spread of disease can move. What we discovered was some concerning trends that would limit the ability of public health officials, as well as the ability of governors and other state leaders to respond to public health emergencies.
This limited authority in some places could be potentially significant as we enter this next phase of the pandemic. According to the latest government figures, 30 states have vaccinated less than half of their eligible populations. In Washington, I'm Joe St. George.
In national news, the Senate is beginning work on a nearly $1 trillion infrastructure bill, which took a small bipartisan group months to finally come up with.
While Democratic leadership wants to move to a full vote quickly, Republicans want to pump the brakes. Republican leader Mitch McConnell wants a robust amendment process in the Senate, calling the bill a jumping-off point. Democrats want the bill passed as soon as possible.
Our full consideration of this bill must not be choked off by any artificial timetable that our Democratic colleagues may have penciled out for political purposes.
Democrats want the infrastructure bill on the president's desk sooner rather than later because they want to move on to another massive $3.5 trillion bill that will cover party priorities left out of the bipartisan bill. Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer says he wants the bill ready for a full vote before the start of the August recess next week.
They say that making law is like making sausage, but I've seen sausage made, and it's a prettier process, and it's a lot easier.
That is Utah Senator Mitt Romney right on the Senate floor talking about crafting the introduction to the new bipartisan infrastructure bill. He worked across the aisle to come up with the Infrastructure Investment and Jobs Act. It includes $3 billion for Utah roads, hundreds of millions of dollars for water projects, and millions for expanding broadband internet into rural Utah.
But I'm pretty confident that the bill will pass the Senate. It will go to the House. If they don't change it, why it can be passed there and come back and become law. We'll see what the House decides to do. But I would note that this is $550 billion spent over 5 years. This is not an immediate one-time hit. This is a 5-year plan.
However, Romney's counterpart, Utah Senator Mike Lee, spent an hour on the Senate floor last night criticizing the bill, calling it unnecessarily large. Well, you got to see this. A semi-truck jackknifed just before noon today, right on the ramp from northbound I-215 to westbound I-80. Pretty dramatic. This is what it looked like. Now, just imagine being that truck driver inside. First responders say the driver was able to safely climb back out onto the road all by himself. The ramp had to be closed for hours to clear the wreckage and also repair the barrier wall. We have yet to hear exactly how this crash happened.
We're all constituents. We're one of the largest sectors of employers in the state. We bring in a lot of jobs, growth, wealth. And yeah, so we should have a voice.
A huge sector of Utah's economy is about to weigh in on Capitol Hill. Utah's tech industry is forming a political action committee centered on Silicon Slopes. This is a big move because it represents a lot of money and growing influence by Utah's booming tech industry in state politics. Fox 13's Ben Winslow has the story you'll only see here.
Tech people by nature, if we see a problem, we want to fix it, and we like to think of better ways we can do things.
Slopes PAC is a new political action committee formed to advance the interests of Utah's tech industry.
We represent 6,500 companies. We're $2.8 billion of the state's revenue.
As the industry continues to boom, so does the desire to affect policy on Utah's Capitol Hill.
Tech in Utah has done extremely well, but I think we would be doing the community a disservice if we didn't also try to bring the rest of the community along with our growth.
Slopes PAC says its goals are economic advancement, workforce, and social mobility.
This is beyond just tax incentives. We're talking about pipeline. We're talking about being able to hire the best of talent. We're talking about diversity and inclusion.
Silicon Slopes has started to get more involved and vocal about Utah politics. In 2020, it hosted a debate among Republican candidates for governor. And during the legislative session this year, Silicon Slopes Commons expressed views on liquor laws, legislation targeting transgender youth, and changing the name of Dixie State University. Not all of its positions or input were well received on Capitol Hill. The PAC is a reaction to that.
One of the things that I quickly realized with this last legislative session when I started my role is that tech had a megaphone, but we didn't necessarily have influence.
A political action committee allows Silicon Slopes to support or oppose candidates, initiatives, or legislation.
We're nonpartisan, so I would imagine that in a lot of situations we'll be supporting Republican candidates and Democrat candidates.
On Capitol Hill, lawmakers reacted to the new PAC.
Silicon Slopes, like the rest of the state of Utah, finds itself really frustrated with the legislature a lot, and I think that pulling together a PAC and putting their interests behind various candidates or policy proposals, it's a wise move on their part.
We have a very diverse economy. I think all those voices need to be represented on Capitol Hill. That tech sector in Utah County where I live, where I represent, is extremely important.
The Slopes PAC plans to start fundraising and determine which issues and candidates to support. The group says it plans to stick to state and local politics.
They have a lot of power in terms of the way we live and our quality of life, and I think it's important that the tech community gets involved.
On the Hill, Ben Winslow, Fox 13 News, Utah.
Still to come, a local group is collecting school supplies for students in need. How you can get involved and give back.
And radar once again lighting up with these afternoon thunderstorms across southern Utah, but there are portions of northern Utah starting to get into the mix. I'll show you where. We're back in 60 seconds.
Welcome back, everyone. The United Way of Salt Lake is working with 4 area school districts to help stuff the bus.
They want to stuff it with thousands of school supplies. The United Way of Salt Lake is having what they call a year of action. And as part of that, they are collecting school supplies for students in 26 schools and 8 community centers in the Salt Lake Valley. They're collecting more than 100,000 individual supplies for more than 13,000 students in the Davis, Canyons, Salt Lake, and Granite school districts.
We're providing 4,900 backpacks to elementary schools and a few high schools and junior high schools. We're also collecting notebooks, pens, pencils, highlighters, crayons, glue sticks, so students have everything that they need to jump into learning in their classroom.
Collections are done for today, but they will be physically collecting again tomorrow morning, starting at 9 a.m. You can also donate anytime online. We have a link at fox13now.com.
The first new interchange on US 89 in Davis County is now open as parts of the state's second largest highway construction project is well underway. It's the 200 North, 400 North interchange in Kaysville. So this means all access now between Nichols Road and US 89 will be closed. UDOT says this closure will be in place while crews construct the new Nichols Road Bridge over the highway, which is expected to be complete in 2023. Starting this Wednesday, the Utah Transit Authority will close westbound 500 South from Guardsman's Way to 15th East in Salt Lake City for track replacement. Crews will also be narrowing eastbound 500 South to 2 lanes from 12th East up to Guardsman's Way. UTA says drivers near the University of Utah should consider alternate routes. And the project is expected to last through August 18th.
Still to come, has the pandemic changed parts of the restaurant experience for good? The reasons why some restaurants are ditching paper menus.
Bringing Mike Conley back will be costly for the Jazz, but ahead we'll get some insight on the commitment from Jazz owner Ryan Smith. And Conley confirmed his free agent signing on social media, and it's pretty great. We'll show it to you coming up in sports.
So glad you could join us for Fox 13 News Live at 5 on this stormy Monday. And following a stormy weekend, Fox 13 meteorologist Breck Bolton will have a look at your first alert forecast in just a few minutes.
Our weather really kicked up with the new month,
boy,
didn't
it ever.
There are some routines from the pandemic that we don't want to stick around, but a few others may be here to stay.
Caroline Sweeney looks into why scanning QR codes for digital menus may become a permanent part of the restaurant experience.
Around 1 p.m., the lunch rush is over, but people found their way into Avo Modern Mexican in Ohio City.
I was just catching up with a friend, and we're having a few drinks.
While some of the safety measures that were up during the height of the pandemic have come down,
We're moving past and getting back to full capacity.
some may stay around.
I do love the QR code menus.
These are QR code menus. The digital code is read by the camera on your phone, and a link pops up. But it also means companies who support the codes could track information like when, where, and how often a code is scanned. Some supporting apps even have people create a login. Daniel Lindquist says that's not a big deal.
I think that your phone has pretty detailed security. Also, the other thing is you don't have to wait awkwardly for like a check.
Safety experts say these square codes cannot be hacked or changed once created, but websites connected to them can. Dangerous links connected to QR codes can contain malware or open up your information to phishing. If a link like that is clicked on, your information could be vulnerable. Avo does have physical menus. These menus are machine washable and they're $7 to print. But 80% of customers use these QR codes, which cuts down on costs.
100% these are going to continue to stay at all of my restaurants.
Gabriel Zeller isn't alone. The National Restaurant Association says half of all full-service restaurants got QR code menus during the pandemic. And these menus can save between 30 and 50% on labor costs.
We used to go from like around 100 menus per printing to we're down to about 25.
Zeller says he does not track any information coming off the QR code menus at his restaurants. For him, these are a way to make dining easier.
And it allows us to modify on the fly.
In Cleveland, I'm Caroline Sweeney.
Just into the Fox 13 newsroom after several days, the Utah Division of Environmental Quality says the water quality issues in Mill Creek have been resolved. This all started after concrete spilled into the stream last Thursday. That led to dozens of fish being killed. The DEQ says the public is now welcome to use the stream again for irrigation and recreation. They also say yesterday's rainfall played a role in helping to purify the tainted water.
That's what I was thinking, that cement spill probably got diluted a little bit after the rains between yesterday and today, Breck.
Yeah, just a little bit. That's an understatement. Of course, throughout that region, we had rains anywhere between an inch to almost 2.5 inches, flooding up through Mill Creek and, of course, throughout most of the Wasatch Front. That was last night. We held on to the rain here this morning. And looking through southern Utah right now, Zion National Park, looking up, blue sky, sunny conditions. Over the past week, we've had several days with flash flood warnings in effect. We had the flooding going on, not there across southwestern Utah. Different story, though, as we move through east central, southeastern Utah, near Lake Powell, spanning up through Canyonlands. This has been the scene. Line of thunderstorms also bringing some heavy rain where we have flash flood warnings in effect that'll remain in effect until about 7 or 8 o'clock tonight. Now here's a view from our Old Mill camera. Again, throughout the morning we had the clouds, we had that light to moderate rainfall, kind of a spillover from last night. And people are asking me like, well, we got all this rain last week. What's the drought situation? Here's the thing. This was the map from last week. Most of the state in the exceptional drought conditions where it's just almost a drought situation we see once a century here. We did see some improvements from last week. They don't update this map until Thursday. Once we get that, we'll show you, and I think we'll see a little change. We might go in some locations from exceptional to extreme. This is helping out, but again, we're coming off almost 18 months of below normal precipitation each and every month. And again, we have to do a lot of work throughout the winter months to bring that snowpack to really do the trick there. But we'll, of course, give that information once we hit Thursday. Now, looking at current temperatures, significantly cooler and afternoon highs well below normal. The extra cloud cover under a westerly flow, and of course that rain earlier on helping cool things off. 70s along the Wasatch Front, but southwestern Utah where we're getting the sunshine, temperatures back on the rise. What's decreasing though is the flash flood potential or the risk, where over the past week, many days we were in that probable orange or expected red category. Tomorrow, a lot of green, not expected. You look in Arches and Canyonlands, though, it's a possibility. But we still have a flash flood watch in effect as you look for over the higher terrain across northern to south central Utah. You see those areas of red. That's where we're finding currently the flash flood warnings in effect. It's Capitol Reef really getting hit hard still, extending this flash flood warning. It says 6 o'clock, but they just updated it to 6:30. So areas such as Torrey, Teasdale, over towards Grover, you definitely can see that flooding moving through. Now, looking over towards eastern Utah, still those showers I mentioned near Lake Powell moving off towards the east. Is Canyonlands, in its sight would be Moab, Monticello, Blanding. That's where we're going to still see that active weather. Isolated thunderstorms making their move. It looks like near Schofield. Bear Lake right now, once again, seeing thunderstorms pushing their way through. That's definitely a time right now. You may want to be off the lake here for the next hour or so, as it looks like for extreme northern Utah, we're going to get hit. And then as we move through, looking ahead, rainfall forecast. Looks like southwest Wyoming, northeastern Utah. That's an area of focus here over the next 24 hours. Notice throughout most of the state, we really don't see much of a threat of rain, as we'll keep it fairly dry. Now tonight, it's 60s and 50s across the state, 70s though in St. George. Tomorrow, it's warmer as we get the sunshine, as we start turning the flow a little bit out of the south there across northern Utah. Thermometer back on the rise. St. George, it's heating up, 107 on Thursday, but then it cools back down. So a nice little roller coaster ride. Yes, we get hot, but not too hot, and we cool back down. Now for northern Utah, it's just 90s, close to triple digits Thursday. As you see over the next 7 days, we're getting rid of that monsoon moisture.
Mike Conley returning to the Utah Jazz. The Athletic reported right at 4 o'clock when the NBA free agent period started that Conley had agreed to a 3-year, $68 million contract to stay with the Jazz. ESPN reporting that figure is $72.5 million. But either way, the Jazz now have a key piece returning in what they hope will lead to an NBA championship. Conley's coming off one of the best seasons of his 14-year NBA career, was named an NBA All-Star for the first time, averaging 16 points and 6 assists per game while helping the Jazz finish with the best record in the NBA. Played great in the first round of the playoff series against Memphis Grizzlies, but a hamstring injury sidelined him during the second round loss to the LA Clippers, and the Jazz struggled at times without him. It won't be official until August 6th, but Conley knew he was going to return to the Jazz. He has a sense of humor. Here's what Conley posted on Instagram and social media this afternoon.
You know what? I'm not leaving. I'm not leaving Utah. I'm not leaving! The show goes on! This is my home! They're gonna need a wrecking ball to take me out of here! I ain't going nowhere!
Yeah, bringing Conley back will be costly for the Jazz, however. They did free up some money when they traded Derek Favors, but this will put them over the luxury tax. The general manager, Justin Zanuck, said last week the team owner, Ryan Smith, willing to do what's necessary to make the Jazz a championship contender.
I want to make it clear, like, his energy and vision and commitment to this city and state, and this team is going to pay huge dividends down the road, and he's willing and able to make those investments on a yearly basis, which is awesome. We're not a rebuilding team. We're not, you know, a playoff competitive team where we have championship aspirations. So, but that's been a lot of years of work where we've, you know, gotten some things right and made some mistakes, but you just keep going forward, and Ryan's going to help us continue to push that forward.
Mike Conley's the first domino that falls. Now we'll see what the Jazz will do the rest of the free agency periods. They'll bring somebody in.
Clever video.
Yeah, I was going to say, that was great.
Yeah, he didn't just do that this afternoon. He's gone for a while.
Yeah.
You had time to put it together.
Yeah.
Mike Conley, you know, off season, if you ever want a part-time video editor position, that was good. We got one
There
for
you go. Yeah, we can, if you're trying to stay busy in the off
That was
season.
really cute. Well, what a great announcement.
Yeah, that's great.
Welcome home to stay. Yeah. Thanks, Jeff.
We'll be right back. Okay, so Breck, talk to us about the weather.
What do you see here? Take a look at that. A lot of sunny skies. Yeah, we're getting rid of that rain, those thunderstorms, that monsoon moisture moving away. Slight chance across eastern Utah tomorrow, but northern Utah looks great.
You know what I'm noticing? Those overnight temperatures.
Yeah.
Now down to the 60s at night, getting
Like
cooler.
it.
Open up that window.
Like it.
Thanks, everyone. Have a great evening.
See you at 9.